Welcome to the Risk Management Studio STPA software module demonstration. My name is Chris, and I'll walk you through the demo for the STPA module in our studio. For those of you that don't know, STPA stands for Systems Theoretic Process Analysis, is a new hazard analysis technique based on systems thinking and a new model of accident causation based on systems theory rather than reliability theory. This has been used in the engineering world, specifically by Nancy Levinson and a lot of her students from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She first published this in her book, Engineering a Safer World, in 2012 from the MIT Press. If you want some information, you can look that up. First, a preface about the STPA module in RM Studio. RM Studio was designed as an information security risk management software. The company that designs it is Sticky Information Security, based out of Reykjavik, Iceland. We originally designed it internally to comply to, or specifically to certify against, the ISO IEC 27001. And we first sold this commercially with the introduction of the ISO IEC 27001 2005. And since then, we've been expanding RM Studio throughout the years, and now we have introduced a new STPA module specifically designed for STPA. This will be available as a standalone product, so you'll be able to do the STPA analysis, but you'll also be able to use the STPA within a risk management framework, whether it's for information security risk management, project risk management, or other types of risk management. So to get us started, first off, I have the STPA open, and I have a STPA project that I want to click open. It's the Caltrans CBT system, or the communication-based train control system, based off of the California Transportation and a new project they are kicking off in 2018. Their objectives are to increase their rail freight for a full realization of the trade corridor improvements. They also want to have a high-speed rail from Anaheim to San Francisco, high-speed rail connections in Sacramento, Inland Empire, and San Diego, new Trans-Bay crossing, and other regional services expanding the capabilities for the train service. So we're going to use this as our project today for STPA. So as I open up the project, you can see that the STPA project has started. Here's the overview tree. This is the name of the project based off of what I originally named it. The diagram also is named for us, and now the analysis is also here. To get us started, I'm going to start with the diagramming as a part of it. I think most people using STPA do that. So first thing I'm going to do is drag in a controller. And now to give us an idea, the diagram canvas here has the ability of dropping and dragging or creating from a context menu. But since we've already put this in here, we're just going to name this real quick, ATS system. That is our first controller. Next thing we can do is we can drag in a controlled process, and that controlled process, we will simply name it interlocking system. Now that we have our interlocking systems labeled here, we want to simply connect this item. So we're going to have a control action from the ATS system to the interlocking systems, and we're going to create a feedback from the interlocking systems to the ATS system. I can rearrange these. You can see they are not anchored to any specific points. If you keep the dimensions similar, they just simply line up. So to adjust the size of these, it's very clear how you do that. And once I have moved this down, I can slide it up or down, and I can slide this over however I see fit. There's also a spacer option, which is quite nice as you get into the diagramming, as it allows you to do things really fast. There's some other functions built into the diagramming as well, like this quick connect for a control loop. Now I have a new control loop that has been added in here. We're going to simply relabel that real quickly. I can use the properties box up here to relabel this. I've copied a new item in here. Now that I've done that, I want to actually create another controller. And once I've done that, I'm going to rename this one as well. So I'll simply select it up here, rename it, and because I have a description box, it's probably valid to add in a description certain items that aren't very self-explanatory. So here's our description for the CBTC Train-Borne Automatic Train Protection, or ATP controller, as provided in force here. Next thing I want to do is I also want to add in one more controller. You can see the diagram allows you to line up similar to other products that are out there. We're going to name this one the train operator. And I'm going to add in one more controlled process over here. So quickly, I'm going to rename these and arrange these for us. With a little bit of movie magic, I've been able to slide some of these. So I want to show you, I can continue to move these over here. Once I've done that, it's simply just a matter of readjusting the connectors, the control actions and feedback to best fit my needs. So as I have moved these over here now, I have the ability to continue my diagram. And it's very simple to use the context menu as well. So I can simply add in a new feedback connector from the train-borne controller to the train operator controls. And then I can add in a control action either by selecting it or using the context menu directly into the train-borne controller from here. And now that I've done a little bit more work, it seems that I'm getting a little bit crowded here, so I'm going to use the spacer option. You can see I can slide them over or down, which is the case that I want here. I want to add a little bit more space for me. And now it's gone back to the move option for me. You can see my canvas is a little bit bigger now, so we can use the slide area to zoom in if we want, or to see more, or we can slide out by using that. There's also the canvas overview that allows me to just scroll over, and if I want to increase or decrease the size of it, I can use the scroll button on the mouse as well to increase that for me. So now I have a little bit better view of my system. It seems that I want to change things a little bit. So first thing I'm going to do is go over here to the diagram, and I'm just going to pull up my properties window. And I look at the controllers first. I don't like the background color that's in here by default, so I'm going to change that up. So I'm going to select a blue background color. The line color will keep the same. So, and then the next thing I'm going to select is the controlled process. I don't like that background color either, so I'm going to select this and change that. The control actions are fine using a black. The feedback line color, I'm going to change that to a dark blue. Instead of a dash line, I'm going to use a solid line. So now that I've done that, you can see that the diagram has now changed for everything. So just a little bit more setup to get done here to get this ready for me to create my analysis. Now that we have our control structure diagram set up and started, we have our control actions and our feedback here, but none of them have any labels. So it's a key piece about labeling each of these items. So I'm just going to simply use this label here, drag this in, and I'm just going to call this particular one the TSR, or the temp speed restriction control action. Then I can drag in another feedback over here. I can move these labels around. As you can see, they're linked to the control action. I can put it right above it. I can move them however I see fit. If I need additional control actions, I can do that. So I'm going to put in over here a new control action. Oops. Add that in over here. Call this the train dispatch. And I can drag in another control action as well. Or use the context menu and create a control action. And we'll call this one the stop next station. So there's our two control actions for this particular one between the ATS system and the CBTC train board controller. I'm going to add in a few more of these real quick. And since we've done a little bit more work here, there's another button I want to show you real quick. As part of the canvas, you have this excellent toolbar up here to give you a few of the options. This is the Fit to Canvas button. Works magically. I like it very much. Another piece that we have in the diagramming elements are the annotations. So I can simply take the annotations here, go for an annotation boundary. I simply take that item, drag it onto my canvas here. Let's say I want to do a little bit more work trying to understand more about my train subsystem. So I select the boundary, and I can simply take it. Very collaborative tool. You can actually use it to make notes as well. We know that you'll have to sequester feedback from other people, so you can come down here. I can scroll out and actually write in a note, label it here. I can change the colors if I want to something else. If I'm looking for green, if I want to change it to red, I can label that however I see fit. Put in the note, type of information that you need in here, and have it labeled. You can also shrink the notes if that's something you choose to do as well, and then move them around wherever you think they need to go. So that's the diagramming piece of the STPA. As you see that as part of the diagramming here, I actually may need to review the train system more, and now I can actually create a sub-diagram as a part of the diagramming. So now that I've done that, I have a new sub-diagram. I can simply open that up in a new canvas, and now I have the ability to redesign my train subsystem. This is commonly referred to as zooming in and zooming out in the diagram. We can do that with the scroll button, but that doesn't really zoom in. So we would create a sub-diagram for the train subsystem. So once I've done that, I can simply take it, I can rename it train subsystem. And then go in and do my new diagramming for the train subsystem by simply dragging in a new controller and adding in the control processes or every controllers that I need. So now I have two diagrams set up within. The other part about a new diagram is you can actually reuse elements by again going to the context menu. I have the ability to take and say I want to create a, sorry, those are selected, new controller, but I can take it from an existing controller that I've already been using in the previous diagram. So if I need to start with my train subsystem, I can go to the controller here for the operator control, and now I can take and add in the control process for control subsystems, and now I have it. So that's a secondary diagram that you can use and allow you to have multiple diagrams within one HCS or control structure. Now that I've gone through the diagramming, I'm going to open up the elements list so you can get a quick overview of that. You can see all the items that I have used. The controllers and control processes are listed here for you. The check mark in the in use box clearly defines that they are in use as a part of my canvas. The control actions and feedbacks are down here. I have 18 of those items. You can see each one is identified here with the source and the target and whether they are in use in my diagram or not. The new ones that I just created on the second diagram, you can see there's new control action, but there is not in use at this point. So maybe I just simply want to delete that because that's unnecessary to me at this point. So now I've done that. So that's the diagramming and the elements for the diagramming in RM Studio. So the next best thing is to simply close out everything. Well, actually, I'm going to save my work, and then I'm going to close out my project, and I'm going to move on to the losses. So now that I start with losses here, I want to quickly use the plus sign, create a new loss for me. That particular loss I'm going to take from my diagram itself. I'm going to label it here, and I'm going to call this particular one L1. Losses are often referred to as accidents within the STPA community. If you prefer that, there's a possibility that we could work on modifying this for you, but for now we just call it losses and hazards. So here I have a train-to-train collision as one loss, and now I'm going to add in an additional loss for me. Now that I've added in a couple losses for me to review, I have a option to go into the hazards or continue identifying losses, but maybe I've already started that work and now I want to start reviewing the hazards, possibly the hazards that are connected to this particular loss or these losses that I identified. So I'm going to simply take a new hazard in here and add that in. So give this a label. Once I've done that, you can see that this is now available for me in step 1, or the unsafe control actions over here. And it also has related constraints. But since I haven't identified any constraints yet, I'll have to come back to this later. But now that I've started and I have a hazard and a loss, I'm just going to simply save this quick, and I'm going to show up the relationship diagramming. This is a new item that we feel is very good to at least identify hazards and losses and the relationship between them. It's very easy for you to simply take this and go through and identify which losses will occur from this particular hazard. So if I want to link it, I can simply say that this may give me a train-on-train collision. I can link this to additional losses as well, such as the train derailment, and I may also have a connection to the train vehicle collision. Now I don't have any enough hazards in here, so I'm going to create a new hazard. I can simply do it inside of the element here, rename that, and this particular hazard I'm going to take and label this violation of interlocking protection. I'm going to name this H2. And I'm going to create an additional hazard, and I will name this one door opening and label this H3. So now with the interlocking protection, I'm going to link that to my loss, and that will be the train derailment as well. And then the door opening, I'm going to link that to a loss as well, and that will be passenger injury train doors. You can see that the relationship diagramming here gives you an excellent view of your hazards and losses. When I get to the constraints, I'll be able to come back and add in any constraints related to the hazards as well. This canvas is the same as the other diagramming that we've already looked at. A lot of the same features exist. So if you want to create hazards and losses, you can do that very quickly here, or you can actually create your lists within this part of it, or the hazards list over here. I'll simply save my work, and now I'm going to move on to the constraints. And as I go into the constraints, this is a key piece about the setup and preparation that you have to do. So it's very important to identify any hazards, losses, and constraints that you need for the STPA. And so if you already have your list, you can simply use the plus sign to create a new constraint. I simply have one here. I'm going to label it overspeed protection. Categories, I can start typing. There's a few default categories that I have in here, but if I wanted to add in addition categories, I can simply type them in, and those will actually become a part of my drop down. If I have a definition, which you should for a constraint, it's important to add that in here as well, or a description, I mean. So the CBTC system must protect the train from running overspeed inside the CBTC territory. So that's my description here. Now maybe I have an additional constraint that I want to add. Now I have two constraints added in, and I can simply save that work, and then I can go back over here and look at the hazards once again. So now I have the hazard 1. I can see that that may be related to the overspeed protection as a part of that constraint. Then I also have the hazard 3, which is the door opening, and that one might be or is applicable to the train doors control. So now I have added in my constraints, and I'll be able to review part of that as a part of the unsafe control actions. I'm simply going to save my work here, and I'm going to close out a few of these tabs and move on to the unsafe control actions. Now we're moving on to the step 1, or unsafe control actions. I'm simply going to populate that for us. And as you can see here, I have a list of control actions that I created inside of the diagram. The temporary speed restriction, train dispatch, stop at the next station, emergency brake, propulsion, train door, door open, enable. As a part of the unsafe control actions, I have to start with the first one here, the TSR. I have no keywords as a part of the assessment. You can see that I can't really do anything, and that's because I haven't added in my keywords. So now I'm going to go back open to the keywords tab. I'm simply open this up so I can add in a new keyword. There are a list of default keywords that we are providing for you. And even though it says not provided, we are providing. You can also create custom keywords, which seems to be part of the trend now. I've heard some people doing it for software applications or other various reasons, but you can create custom keywords. But for us today, we're just going to add all of our default keywords and simply select them all. So now we have not provided, provided with not, not expected, provided too early, too late, too soon, stopped too soon, applied too long, and incorrectly provided. So those are the keywords that we'll be using inside of our unsafe control actions. And as I click back over to that assessment, you can see that they are now provided for me. So if I were to simply take a look at the first TSR, the temporary speed restriction, I can see now that at this particular one, this may not be provided. Now we come down here and we say that the keyword is not provided. The UCA is just simply the TSR not provided. That's our UCA. If we have an assumption, we can put that in here, and any interpretation we need. If we need to link this to a particular hazard, we can do that. We can say that the train over speed hazard was caused by this. And then we could proceed through the rest of them, provided, not expected. Let's say that's not applicable to us, too early. Yeah, maybe that was not applicable either, but provided too late. That definitely could be a UCA for us. So we can just say that TSR provided too late. Then this is also linked to the train over speed. And then stop too soon is NA, and applied too long is NA, and incorrectly provided is also NA. So now we have selected 2 UCAs for the TSR. I'm going to do a couple more here quick. Now we're going to move on to propulsion. These are a part of the train operator, unsafe control actions. We'll say that for propulsion not provided is not applicable. Providing the hazard is not expected. Let's say that that is our UCA, and here we're going to just simply copy this text. The propulsion given when the train is not supposed to speed up. And he link this to the hazard 1, the train over speed, as we see fit. And then we're going to click NA for the rest of these, as they are not applicable to this particular one. Next, we're going to just select one more. We're going to go to the emergency brake. As I select the emergency brake, not provided, definitely would cause an unsafe control action for us. So I'm going to simply select that and come down here and say the brake not given when the train needs to slow down. And this is also going to be connected to the first hazard. I have the ability to actually come over here and start looking at my progress. You can see that at this point I haven't started the progress meter. It says no keywords have been defined, but we do have some system level hazards not there. So I'm going to click this button, and this is going to tell me I have 20 out of 84 keywords that have been assessed for my 12 control actions. The more control actions you have, the more keywords you have, the higher these numbers increase to. This is all the work that needs to be done. You can see that my progress meter has started. We're about, say, 25% of the work done. We need a lot more to get going. So I have more work to do. I can get back into the actual unsafe control actions here and continue my work doing those, or I can move on to maybe rediagramming. It's up to me to do that later. One last piece is the loss scenarios. That has not been completed yet for the development. It's in the works and should be developed very soon. We are expecting to have a full project available for the STPA module available later in the summer. The actual product's debut is planned for the fall at the next European Stamp Workshop in Amsterdam, and it'll be on sale privately before that, but most likely after that it'll be commercially available. So the last piece that I want to show here, I'm going to close a few of these tabs quick, and then we're going to move on to the report, just so we can see the results of all of our hard work. So I'm simply going to generate the full report, and this is going to populate all the data that we can review. So once I'm done that, I'll bring this up to full screen a little bit, and I'll simply say that we need to review this at 150% just to give us a little bit back. We'll change it to 100%. Maybe. This is the report prepared by me, Chris Brown. The table of contents here shows us the models and analysis for the STPA project. So you see it's the Caltrans CBTC system that we did, is a diagram, and then the analysis is the STPA project information. The STPA project information we entered in with our description, goals, or anything that we need to, we have that in here. Then we have the diagram, and you can see this fits the page for us because we made a pretty small diagram, but the diagram is represented here, including the annotation and the notes that we have. System goals and description were not entered, but those are very good ideas to have. These are the diagram elements that we used, all of the controllers and control processes, all the control actions and feedback. Here are just a list of the controllers and control processes in detail, so you can see the descriptions. How do we enter them in? The ATS system has a detail. The train-borne controller has a description here as well. And now we can see the control flow. So these are all of our control actions. We have propulsion, source, target, operator controls, train systems. Any descriptions we have would be added in here. And the whole list of control actions provided. This is the train subsystem that we hadn't started yet, briefly started, and the items for that diagram are here. Now the controllers and control processes are here. The ATS system we reused is here, and the control flow. This is the analysis part where we started our system level losses and hazards. You can see I identified the losses of the train-to-train collision, train vehicle collision, train derailment, passenger injury to the train doors, and then the hazards that would cause those losses. This is the relationships that we've linked the hazards to the losses, so we can see it visually, and the constraints that we added, which is just the overspeed protection and the train doors control. So now we can actually look at the step 1 analysis. The keywords that we chose were here. Those are the default keywords. Then the actual step 1 table, as you can see, is here. So basically I have the stop at the next station, it didn't evaluate, but the propulsion given when the train is not supposed to speed up. That's our H1. The operating mode select I didn't use either. The emergency brake I did, applied too short, and the brake not given, and then the temporary speed restriction, TSR is not provided, and the TSR provided too late. And that is the summary report that you get. There's also smaller reports that you can generate as sub-reports within the tool as well. And the next thing is to simply go back and review your data and continue to do the work process. That's all we have for the demonstration today. Thank you for watching. My name is Chris. Again, I'm the Risk Management Studio Marketing and Sales Manager. I appreciate your time. Thank you again. And if you have any questions, please send them either directly to me at chris@sticky.eu or to Svana, our project leader for the STPA project, which is svana@sticky.eu. And you can even contact just our general information at sticky.eu if you want to know more. Thank you very much. Goodbye.